About to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
All right, Mr. Jorde.
Please state your name.
Dan Wahl.
And Mr. Wahl, do you own land in Dickinson County that's being presently targeted for a hazardous carbon pipeline by Summit?
My Wahl Family Trust owns it, and I'm the trustee of it.
Very good. And in this matter, have you caused to be filed some pre-filed written testimony with various questions, answers, along with certain exhibits and documents?
I have.
And if we were to walk through all of those same questions with you today, would your answers be substantially similar to those that you provided in writing?
Yes, they would.
And do you have any material updates or corrections are necessary to be made?
I might add to the list that I do have a actual legitimate easement on my property that includes the rural water.
All right, so previously when you prepared your testimony and discussed easements, that was left off, but you've come to learn that you do have a rural water easement.
That's correct.
All right. We would offer exhibits 153 through 158, 613, and 631.
Are there objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
With no objections, the board will admit.
All right. With that, sir, I'm going to tender you for cross-examination questions.
Mr. Taylor, I'm sorry. Ms. Gruenhagen beat you to the punch this time.
No.
What's your next?
Thought I'd give Wally a little break. Hi, Mr. Wahl. My name is Chris Gruenhagen with the Iowa Farm Bureau, and I just had some questions about your CRP ground. If the staff could put up the KMZ file for me. Can you identify where on the property the CRP land is?
So it's on, the pipeline's running on the west side of the property. Almost the entire west end of 40 acres of this entire property is in the Farmable Wetlands Program. It's the south, the south and the west side of that entire parcel.
Does it continue on to another property that you own too?
No.
Okay. And so in order to qualify for the Farmable Wetlands Program, my understanding is it needed to be designated as a prior converted or a farmed wetland. Do you know which one it was prior to enrollment?
I could not answer that right now.
If it was a farmed wetland, would there also be concerns about violating some of the requirements to participate in the farm program?
Could you repeat your question?
Yeah. If it was a farmed wetland and there was some increased drainage on it or that wetland was destroyed, would there be concerns about being eligible for the federal farm program?
Absolutely, that's the truth, yes.
So are you concerned both about the CRP contract and also your federal farm program eligibility?
Yes, that's correct. It would disqualify me for the actual current program I'm in and take me away from any other farm programs that I'm currently in.
And if FSA or NRCS determined that you were in violation of any of those terms, would you expect Summit to compensate you for that and make you whole?
It's already been indicated that I am responsible, and I myself is responsible for violating my contract. Summit's got nothing to do with my contract with the federal government.
So if there was a penalty assessed, or if that could not be mitigated, would you expect Summit to, or would you want Summit to compensate you?
They couldn't begin to compensate what I would owe back.
Thank you. No more questions.
Mr. Taylor. Mike.
Looking at the KMZ file, it looks like they're just nicking a small corner of your property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever talk to a Summit agent or a Summit representative why they couldn't avoid that little corner?
Have not.
Do you know whether the property owners to your west and southwest and south have signed easements?
They have not. I am the tenant on the one directly to the west. The drainage of that CRP ground and then some all drains to the west. So I have a vested interest also in that parcel to the west. If the drainage is cut off, not only does that landowner suffer, but I'm on a 50-50 share crop with that. I have a vested interest in the financial decisions and what I plant, when I plant it decisions. It's very pertinent that I have a say in that parcel to the west also. It's not only financially my responsibility to watch over that, but the owners of that land has given me their confidence to watch over it as I would my land too, which I've put in the CRP and taken care of it.
Did you ever talk to a Summit agent about an alternative route over your property?
I do have an alternative route listed in my pre-file.
Okay. Is your property in an area that's they call the Spirit Lake North Watershed Project?
My watershed actually falls to the east. That wraps around to the west and then turns south again. And but the parcel north does fall in that watershed area, and the pipeline does go through that watershed area.
Okay. But your property is not part of that.
It is not.
So, what contacts have you had with Summit agents or representatives?
Okay. In March of 22, I received a call saying they were coming to survey on my land the following week. I told him that no, he wasn't, and he's only allowed on my land unless he has a court-ordered injunction. And after that, I contacted my county sheriff, and after a couple weeks of discussions on that, he assured me and other landowners that they would not be coming on your property without the proper paperwork.
Did they ever send you a written notice that they were going to survey?
Not that I've gotten.
Okay. So what happened after you contacted the sheriff?
There was a series of attempts to survey other people's ground, and the sheriff was called 5 different times from March of 22 to I believe it was right up until August of this year, of surveyors trying to get on the land. And on one instance, the trespasser did get a citation, and in every other instance, the trespassers were told by the deputy sheriff that they have no right to survey without an injunction. So they left.
So have they ever surveyed your land as far as you know?
I've never given permission, but the point and place where that lies, I live on the easternmost, my house is, I just about don't recognize that land map because my house has been there since 1917 and it's not even showing up. So, I mean, it's...
Can you use the pointer to show where your house would be?
So it's about right here.
Okay. So on the east edge of your property, about halfway between north and south?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a very short lane, so it's on that road, county road.
Okay.
You asked about have I ever had contact. That was my first contact about the man surveying. But in 22 also, a woman named Brenda Hall showed up at my place. I had just gotten done with a parade in Lake Park. I was a political candidate, and I had some placards on my car that said Wahl for State House. And I just gotten back, and I was resting in the house, and this person showed up. And right after introducing herself, she looked at my car and said, "Oh, you're a political candidate. I have something special you need to talk to."
And then what happened?
I told her that's the whole reason I was running for political office, because my representative had already been corrupted by Summit and their agents, and I wanted to expose them.
So, is that what the agent was referring to, or what?
Absolutely. Absolutely. She apparently, if you're a politician, you get a special person to negotiate with.
Okay. So, were there any times after that you met with any Summit agents?
I didn't meet with any other. My 2 occasions to actually speak to them was that one time on the phone. I told them that they would not be surveying. And then that Brenda Hall, I spoke to her in person. On May 1st, the Cody Parkin showed up at my house. I was out planting. But my young daughter was there. Cody had an associate with him, a female. And my daughter called me 2:33 in the afternoon, pretty shook up. She says, "Dad, there was 2 Summit agents here, and they wanted to talk to you, and they said they knew that I didn't want to see them, but they showed up anyway." But this was 6 days before my date of the hearing that Mr. Dublinsky was suing me. And the agents offered my daughter a large sum of money if I would sign an easement, and then they would drop the lawsuit against me.
Is that what the agent said?
That's their words to my daughter.
Yeah. And how old was your daughter?
She's a lot younger than she looks, so any agent looking at her would have thought she was completely underage.
Well, how old was she?
She's 24 years old.
So why were you being sued?
apparently I prevented them from surveying because it would be a big financial hit to them if it took them any longer to proceed with their project. In my lawsuit, the claims of financial distress to them apparently is more important than my land rights. I've got served on September 19th of 2022. Someone asked for, it took a few months to get a court date, but then they asked for a summary judgment, a quick way to get a injunction on me, and the judge denied them. And it went on until a court date was postponed twice, I believe, and then ironically was dropped 6 days before this hearing started.
You mean Summit dropped the suit?
6 days before this hearing today started. It was dropped August 16.
Is your property on the route to the ethanol plant in Minnesota that is on Summit's pipeline route?
Could I have the KFZ pulled back up again?
Sure, but can we do that? And we need to
zoom out, please.
Zoom out, you know.
Until you get to the Minnesota border.
Do we know where that is?
Yep, that's the big white line up there.
All right.
So, the pipeline that goes past my place from Superior to the Minnesota border, everyone needs to understand that the imaginary CO2 would be flowing from north to south to the Superior ethanol plant, in which supposedly collects, or imagine in their dreams, someone would hope that one day they would collect. But there's a series of a few ethanol plants in Minnesota that would be flowing southward. Summit has not even asked the state of Minnesota for a permit to build the pipeline yet. The IUB board is actually looking at a pipeline where it's not even beginning to, it's not even a hint of in the process of getting any traction in Minnesota. So there's 30 parcels between the Minnesota state line and the Superior ethanol. 22 of them are in the Exhibit H. That means 8 of them has voluntarily, and I use that term loosely. My friend at the Minnesota border signed only because he was really afraid. He'd already went through a eminent domain process on Highway 71. He was scared to death that he'd get nothing out of it, so he signed. But the IUB board would just be remiss in granting any of those farmers and landowners on that route any kind of Summit any eminent domain on us. There's absolutely nothing coming from the north going to the Superior.
I think you recently filed an Exhibit 631 regarding the Summit proceedings in South Dakota. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
And can you explain what the significance of that is?
Objection, Your Honor. State the objection. This is not a proper cross-examination question. It's taking a late filed exhibit and asking the witness under the guise of friendly cross, a direct examination question, asking him to explain an exhibit he filed. Mr. Taylor?
It's my understanding from what was discussed earlier today that it's proper in cross-examination to ask the witness to explain or expand on pre-filed testimony. That's what I'm doing.
Could you rephrase and ask a specific question about the exhibit, please?
Have you learned that Summit is, quote, turning over a new leaf in South Dakota?
I understand in South Dakota they must be pretty lucky because that courtesy stops at the Iowa border. The IUB has not held them accountable for the shitty treatment we've all gotten, so they just let them roll with whatever they got to come at us with.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Ms. Kaufman.
I had a question about, I know where Spirit Lake is and where Okoboji is, and is your land in Dickinson County? Is Spirit Lake and Okoboji in Dickinson County also?
Correct. Dickinson County encompasses my land, a mile east of me, and then it goes, it encompasses all of the Iowa Great Lakes, actually down into Spencer, and then west probably 10, 15 miles of Spirit Lake to Osceola.
So you're like 10, did you say 10 to 15 miles from Spirit Lake? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm about 8 miles from Spirit Lake.
You're about 8 miles. So the Iowa Great Lakes or Spirit Lake and Okoboji, do you know, is that considered a high consequential area? I mean, I don't know the population of that area, but I know that it gets quite high in the summertime.
It's well over 100,000 in the summertime. I think Summit has really failed to mention to the IUB that we're in danger of, their pipeline, and their pipeline cuts through the watershed area. If you expand that to the kill zone, which they won't provide any plume models for.
Objection, Your Honor. State the objection. I'm going to object to the narrative as non-responsive. If I can be more specific, the question was whether or not Spirit Lake is a high consequence area.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Ms. Kaufman.
Oh, isn't that what he's trying to answer? My understanding, you tried to tell me about the consequences of affecting Spirit Lake and Okoboji. The Iowa Great Lakes is what we call them, and it's a very high populated in the summertime recreational area, as most people here know. That I'm just wondering what the impact to that area would be. I don't have the data of whether or not it's.
Okay, can you ask a specific question, please?
Do you know the population of the greater area, the greater Iowa Lakes region? Do you know the approximate population? Did you say 100,000 at least in the summertime?
It's well over 100,000 with tourism in the summertime. The wintertime, I know the population of Spirit Lake, but if you ask me, Okoboji, Arnold's Park, Milford, they're all in the watershed area, so they have to be included. And in fact, the tile line that serves the parcel a mile north of me dumps into Big Spirit, which big town of Spirit Lake gets their water source from, and the kill zone is actually touching Big Spirit Lake. It crosses the main district county tile that dumps into Spirit Lake and would contaminate the lake for the entire drinking water of Spirit Lake.
My understanding from previous testimony today was a high consequential area was 50,000 population or more. So I think this, if that's the population, it sounds like it is.
Well, I would imagine if they're using just the pipeline, you might be just on the outside perimeter, but including the kill zone of at least a mile, it touches Big Spirit Lake.
I wanted to ask you also about your income from this land. Is this your primary income, or do you would this be in the event of a bad situation happening, not only just to your property in specific, would that affect you?
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
Again, the ninth question in all the Jorde landowner testimony, this one happens to appear on page 3, asks whether or not the witness or his family depends upon the income from the land. It's asked and answered.
Sorry, thank you. Would it be a financial burden, may I ask that?
To Ms. Grunhagen's question earlier also, to be clear, to be kicked out of the program today would cost me $230,000 in repaying the payments that I've gotten in the last 7 years and would get in the next 8 years. It expires in 2031. And that CRP payment of $230,000, I think I'll reach in my back pocket and just repay that.
Going back to my other question about the potential high consequential area of this playground of Iowa, what we call it, do you think that the people in Spirit Lake and Okoboji and all the visitors that we get in Iowa to that area might be interested in knowing that a big pipeline is coming right close? Do you think that's been well advertised?
It's certainly a case that if it doesn't involve your land, that they look the other way. We're trying to get the word out. The supervisors of my county are certainly aware of it, but they've been intimidated not to set any ordinances. So here we sit today with a bunch of spineless supervisors in my county that won't stand up for the people.
Do you think it should just be the supervisors, or do you think in general our politicians are failing Iowans about standing up for our private property rights?
100%.
Not 100%, of course, but there are some that are very brave. But does it seem to you that the politicians are biased?
It's legalized corruption. I mean, I can see what who donates to Summit's the major donator of the governor. Well, she's letting the project flow. It trickles down to my county supervisor that signed an easement and then always stands up for Summit at the board meetings. It goes from the top to the bottom.
Thank you. No further questions.
Go ahead. Oh, Ms. Claus, sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wahl. I just have a couple of questions pertaining to your suit that Summit put you through. Did you have to go to a great deal of financial cost to prepare for that suit?
I paid a retainer to an attorney, and we had no less than 2 Zoom calls, and then they got dropped after 11 months. Absolutely cost of my time. I absolutely think that Summit's responsible for paying for a suit that I have to hire a lawyer and spend my time and energy worrying about it for 11 months. And then it just disappeared 6 days before our hearing starts.
That was the second question. So you feel they should reimburse you for that?
100%. And my other time and effort I've spent in this, I've spent no less than 2,200 hours on this. $108,000. I'd love a check any day, Mr. Dublinsky.
No further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Hike.
Hello, Mr. Wahl. I'm Chris Hike over here. I'm a landowner.
Yes, ma'am.
Did Summit provide you with any paperwork discussing any of the warnings or risks or safeties of information concerning this pipeline on your property?
No, they did not.
Also, I realize it's down in the bottom portion of your land. is on the west side. Do you see that there'd be a crop loss or some land destruction over because of that pipeline there in that small area?
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
The witness's testimony discusses yield loss at pages 15 and 38, as well as in attachments 9 and 10.
Ms. Ike?
Well, I don't have that, so if that's what it says, that's what it says. Did you have to take off farming today to come?
You know, I originally agreed to come down when it looked like there was some rain on the forecast last week. And inadvertently, I had a major combine breakdown. So I certainly could have been home today fixing the combine. Instead, I hired a John Deere tech to come out and repair my combine. Again, I believe that's a $1,000 bill that Mr. Dublinski owes me.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Board Member Burns?
Yeah, Mr. Wall, just to clarify a little bit, if we can bring that KMZ map back up quickly. All right, so the parcel in red is yours, correct, that we've been talking about?
I guess it is. Again, I you know, that thing has got to be over 150 years old because my house isn't on there.
Okay, so that's the part I want to clear up, is if we zoom out, is that your house to the
There it is, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that your home was on this map. So,
Yep.
Okay, so that is your residence there.
That's where I live in my family. I've got 3 children and 2 grandchildren, and one's going to be born in 3 days.
Okay, and then just to clarify as well, so then do you farm the land directly south of your parcel?
I do not.
Do you know if they signed on to the pipeline?
They have not.
Okay.
That was the tract that Kayla Corcoran spoke about the other day, where someone tried negotiating a deal right here on the stand that it moving another 50 feet away from her house, which is inconsequential to her life, apparently.
Okay.
That's Huntu Farms, and Kayla's house sits at the south end of that.
Okay, so then so then she's the one building the new home to the far south, and then the parcels north of her were owned by her aunt, maybe, if I recall, or something.
That's her grandpa's sister, yes.
Okay. And then if we go back up, so then directly to the west of your parcel that you own, you said you farm that land, correct?
I do.
Okay. And do you farm, my map looks just a shade different than yours, or than the one that we're looking at up there. So you farm everything that pipeline is going through until it hits that county road up there.
That's correct, yep.
Okay.
Well, I mean, everything south of me where you see the windmills is Huntu Farms, but my quarter section and the west half of my section too. It goes to Highway 71.
Okay, so you farm everything up to Highway 71 there. Okay. Wanted to clarify that. And then just to define what you meant by, multiple times you used the word kill zone. What were you referring to?
The dispersion models, which you won't let us see.
And then you stated that your tile from these parcels dumps into Spirit Lake, or which lake?
I did not state that. I said my watershed goes to the east. It dumps into Little Swan Lake, which is back right across from my home. Is my mother's farm, and I farm that clear down to Little Swan. It goes for half a mile. There it is.
Okay.
And it ultimately ends up back there in Little Swan Lake.
Little Swan. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Jorde for redirect.
Yes, thank you. Can we stay on that KMZ, please? And then just a point of clarification. I was under the impression that the parcels not in red on the pipeline route meant that they were non-Exhibit H parcels, but apparently Mr. Wahl, the parcel just south of you with the wind turbine there, you think that's all Huntoon Farms ground?
That is correct. The IUB's got that wrong on there, that they have not signed anything.
Just to clarify, Mr. Jorde, our staff is unhighlighting the ones surrounding the parcel that we're talking about for clarity.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, all right, that helps. So we're looking at your parcel here, but everything to the south to that county road of you is all red. It's all Exhibit H, people that haven't signed. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, that's 75% of the people from Superior to the Minnesota line is under Exhibit H.
Okay. That's what I needed clarification on. All right. And so then if now we could zoom all the way out so we can see that Minnesota. Okay, perfect. All right. So the Superior, or the Green Plains ethanol plant there, that's that area right to the west of the town of Superior. Is that right? That's the plant?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. So what you were getting at earlier is, and we're not seeing everything in red here, but what you were getting at earlier is the proposed route that cuts through all of those folks from Superior heading northwest into Minnesota. That's a dead end into Minnesota somewhere.
It's a dead beginning. It starts up north and travels south. It's a pipeline coming from nowhere, going to Superior.
But if it started way further north in Minnesota and it ultimately is supposed to go to North Dakota, why wouldn't they just go from Minnesota directly west and skip all of this?
Because some of it's idiots.
Okay. Well, all right. So I understand you're against the project, but I'm presuming here that it'd be your testimony that at the very least nothing northwest of the Superior plant in Iowa should be granted eminent domain for those reasons.
It'd be pretty mad just to even consider it.
Okay. Now, this survey business, I think you said they came to your home and offered your daughter money for you to drop the lawsuit. I just want to make sure the record's clear. Is that what you said?
That's absolutely the truth.
Okay. And is that the survey lawsuit where when they sued you, they asked for an expedited hearing, an immediate injunction because it was so important to survey on your land?
Yeah, and the judge didn't give it to them, so they just kept pushing it off the dates and postponing it, and you really haven't done a thing with it for several months, and then ironically drop it.
So the lawsuit where they said it immediately, we have to have this injunction, we can't proceed without it, drags on for 11 months, and then they just say, just kidding, we don't need it anymore.
You know, I need to point out that they sue me for not letting them survey, but I do have some paperwork here from my landlord, Denise Tyndall, that shows the proposed route and the engineering schematics behind it. And for someone not being allowed to go on my ground, apparently they got the pin found in August of last year. They couldn't go on anybody else's land except mine, Denise Tyndall's, or Huntoon's. So they trespassed there again too. And apparently, unless you don't catch them, they feel like that's all right.
And when looking at
and again, they already found the pin of August, and they sued me in September. How are they claiming that I prevented survey when they were out there and found the pin?
It's a good question. And so when you're looking at the balancing and costs and benefits, you want this board to consider all of these costs of your time, frustration, compensated expenses, legal fees, etc. And is it your position that Summit's already starting in a deep hole of costs before we even can talk about, think about even an alleged benefit?
If I would get eminent domain, Summit owes me $388,000 for my CRP lost, my time, my legal fees, and I'm not throwing in this week.
You had brought up the Board of Supervisors. Is your county, Dickinson, I take it as a county that failed to do any setbacks related to hazardous pipelines?
They joined Mr. Whippel, or hired Mr. Whippel, to represent their interest, and the landowners that are especially affected, Kayla Corcoran, myself, we've pleaded them several times, and they said they passed it to the planning and zoning, but that was a year ago, and they've done nothing. It's been brought up that they're afraid of getting sued.
Well, that was my next question. So you're aware that the intimidation factor has spread beyond the landowners to the actual county officials?
Not only the intimidation, but the coercion of certain members of that county board.
With Summit?
With Summit.
Now, I take it you must sell corn to that ethanol plant there in Superior, given how close you are.
You take that wrong.
Well, why don't you sell corn to them? Wouldn't you make more money?
If more money was my motive, I guess maybe I consider it, but the ease of getting through fall, supporting my local cooperative, I get dividends back from my local cooperative. The more you do business with your local community, the more you get back, the more you help others. My life is not about making another dollar.
Are you aware if the Green Plains Superior Ethanol Plant in any filings anywhere has ever claimed that if this pipeline doesn't go through, their business is at some material risk?
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
This witness was not cross-examined in any way about these issues.
Mr. Jorde?
Well, a la Mr. Dublinsky's prior argument, this is an argument that was brought up in Summit's case that was put on before, and this witness has land immediately near this plant, and I think it's appropriate that he answer that question.
Okay, that objection is sustained. Go ahead, Mr. Jorde.
Okay, so you don't sell corn to that ethanol plant. You have other markets in and around your area to sell corn, correct?
Correct. The Superior Elevator, what's called New Co-op, is directly across the street to the east of Green Plains. And there's also a feed mill in Esterville that grinds feed for hog production that I have started recently patronizing them, again, to keep my dollars local.
And you did suggest a potential alternative route, which has been on file here. Since you suggested your alternative route, has Summit contacted or reached out in any way to try to work with you?
Have not.
Okay. Do you expect that they will anytime soon?
Yeah, again, I think the courtesy factor stops at the Iowa border. Apparently it's now just for South Dakotans only.
You suspect that's because they got beat in South Dakota?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right, sir. I don't have any more questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wahl. You're excused. We will do a 15-minute break now. Then we will come back, push through to 5:30, be gone for an hour for the supper, and then come back after 6:30 to finish up. So, who will we be going to next, Mr. Jorde?
Yep. We're going to go to Dr. Sheila Peterson-Eller.
Okay.
and then we'll have some virtual people after her.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that.